ancient Chatzor, Tel Chatzor, and this was an important place, a very important place for two reasons. One, because of its location on the Via Maris, the Derech Hayam route, one of the main international routes between Mesopotamia and Egypt, with us smack in the middle. Okay, and that's why it's also mentioned, of course, as being built up by Shlomo in Sefer Melachim Aleph, Perek Tet. וזה דבר המס אשר העלה מלך שלמה לבנות את בית השם ואת ביתו ואת המילו ואת חומת ירושלים ואת חצור ואת מגידו ואת גזר. So this is what Shlomo raises taxes for, to be able to do his different building projects. And among these different building projects are Chatzor, Megiddo, and Gezer, which are three important places along the Via Maris, and they're important strategic junctions, specifically along the Via Maris. And that's one of the reasons why Chatzor is important, but there gets another reason as well in this case. From Tel Chatzor towards the west and the north, we can see the mountains of the Upper Galil. And if we look out to the east, it's a hazy day. We can kind of make out a little bit the area of the Golan Heights to the east. And coming back in between them, here we have Emek Achula, which in antiquity, and actually until modern times, was mainly swampland. And as such, the main route, the Via Maris, would have had to try to avoid those swamps by sticking a little bit to the cliff's edge, to the ridges just to the west of the Emek, of the valley. And as such, would have to come right by here, right by Chatzor. And that's what gives us a strategic position. Mentioned in a lot of foreign texts, more than most other places in this region. And as such, we can see why it was a very important place. It had connections outside of the immediate land of Israel. And so we can understand why Chatzor specifically would become a place of leadership where, among the nations at least, where they were the ones to gather the other cities around to fight against Yehoshua. And they're the ones who lead the campaign of the north against Yehoshua and Am Yisrael. So if you look in Yehoshua, Perek Yud Aleph, ויהי כשמו יבין מלך חצור וישלח אל יובב מלך מדון ואל מלך שמרון ואל מלך אכשף ואל המלכים אשר מצפון בהר ובערבה נגב כנרות ובשפלה ובנפות דור מים. Specifically, it's Yavin, the king of Chatzor, who gathers the northern kings and kingdoms against Yehoshua, because again, he has those connections to an important place. In addition, if we skip down a little bit, we see Vayashav Yehoshua he will code it Chatzor. Yehoshua comes back and he destroys and he captures Chatzor vet Malka hika b'charev, and he kills the king by sword. Ki Chatzor lefanim hi rosh kol hamamlachot ha'ele. Chatzor at that time was the head of these northern kingdoms. Now inside the gates of the city of ancient Chatzor, being as Chatzor was built by Shlomo HaMelech, just like Megiddo and Gezer, we would expect perhaps to find some similarities, and that's exactly what we find here. We're looking at a very serious fortification. Again, this was an important city, and these are the gates specifically from the times of Shlomo HaMelech that were built here in Chatzor. And we can see, just like we find by Megiddo and Gezer, here too we have what's known as a six-chamber gate, meaning that as we walk into the gate complex, we can see we have one set of chambers over here, a second set of chambers, and finally the third set of chambers. Again, these are places where you'd have the elders sitting. There are times when even the king would sit in the gates, as we see in Sefer Shmuel. There are times when you'd have the marketplace in the gates, and etc. All of this was in this area. It was a very important place. And, of course, it had to be very well fortified. And here, we see in these three places, we have similar attributes of these six-chamber gates. It's not the only place where they have them, but it is a commonality between them. From here, we're continuing on into the city of Chatzor itself. Chatzor, from the times of the Canaanim, they found a mikdash, a temple that was used by the Canaanim to worship their idols. They found different kelim, different utensils, which they believe were probably used in the rituals. Before entering the area where the palace itself was, and of course the roofing on top is modern, but we'll see the finds that are inside. Right in front of it here, we have remains of what is believed to be a platform used during Avodah Zarah by the Canaanim who were living here in the area, in Chatzor. Right now inside the palace of Chatzor from the times of Yehoshua ben Nun. Now there are differences of opinions exactly when the story of Yehoshua coming in with Am Yisrael happened, but according to one of the main academic opinions, not only was this place in use, but at that time it was put out of use and destroyed as the archaeologists who dug here found a thick layer of ash. The place was destroyed in a fire. And if we look in the Navi itself, most places that Yehoshua conquers were not burnt down. But here we have an exception. ויכו את כל הנפש אשר באה לפי חרב. אחרים לא נותר כל נשמה, ואת חצור שרף באש. Of all the places that we see that Yehoshua attacked, destroyed, conquered, this is the only one where we find this layer of ash. And that shouldn't surprise us, because when we look at the psukim, we find that it says, רק כל הערים העומדות על תילם לא שרף עם ישראל. All the places that they'd taken, Am Yisrael didn't burn. Zulati et Chatzor levada saraf Yehoshua. Only Chatzor was burnt down. We found a palace and a city burnt down exactly where it says. We find a temple of the Canaanim destroyed, idols smashed. It looks like perhaps we found regards from Yehoshua and Am Yisrael in his time.